Welcome to Rumor Has It and Let's Talk Rumors. Very quick, I wanted to talk about the Watts family. If you don't know, the Watts family was a very big story back in 2018. Christopher and Shannon Watts got married in 2012. In 2013, they purchased a home in Colorado, a five-bedroom home worth approximately $400,000. They also welcomed their first daughter, Bella Watts, who was born December 17, 2013. Fast forward 2 years, the couple seemed to be thriving, but they would file for bankruptcy and they reported their debt for $489,000. Together, they had a combined income of only $100,000 per year. And they would also welcome their second daughter, Celeste Watts, who was born on July 17, 2015. Again, from the outside looking in, just like most couples who show their love and showcase their, affection for one another on social media, they appear to be happy from the outside looking in. And so Shannon was one of the ones that would, the type who would always post and profess her love for Chris. And fast forward to June of 2018, right around Father's Day, Shannon would record a video of Bella singing a song to her dad, and she would post that on Facebook, and she would tell Chris how grateful and thankful she and the girls were to have him in her life. And so on the same day that Shannon posted this video, Chris was at work and he was getting his coworker's number, Nicole Kissinger. No big deal. Coworkers share numbers all the time. But on June 17th, he would tell Kissinger about his wife and his children. He would also inform Kissinger that he and Shannon were separated and they were in the midst of getting a divorce, which was not true at all. And so, Nicole, on the 19th, Shannon would find herself at the doctor's appointment. She would get an ultrasound and she would ultimately record her telling Chris about the new baby because she was expecting, and this time it was a boy. And so she would record telling him that they had another baby on the way, and his words expressed that he was excited and happy. But if you watch the video, you can see he's a little disattached. He's not, as excited as he claimed to be. And he said, and one of the things he said was, I guess it happens when you're trying. And so then we fast forward, and Shannon goes on a vacation, a 5-week vacation with her two daughters, and she leaves Chris back in Colorado. And so while she's on this vacation with the girls, Chris is starting to talk to Kissinger more. And so on July 4th, he invited her over to the home he shared with Shannon and his children. And so when she get there, she said she went to prepare a diet plan, but Chris ended up making lunch, and the two shared conversation, and they had lunch, and that was the end of that. But a few days later, she would meet up with Chris again, and they would go on their first date. This date would be at the car museum. And, oh, excuse me. And so this date would be at the car museum. And fast forward a couple of days, and Chris found himself going on another date with Nicole Kissinger. This time, they went to the Great Sand Dunes, and then they slept outside. They went to a campground and slept outside. And so Chris would later report that this part of the relationship gave him a thrill that he hadn't had for a long time. So the vacation was getting ready to end, and Chris had to go and meet his family. And before he met his family, he went and bought a card, and he wrote a love letter inside the card, and he gave it to Nicole. And then he went and he reunited with his family. When they reunited, the reunion was not a happy reunion. And police discovered that through text messages where Shannon ultimately tells him he seems unhappy. He doesn't seem as if he is the same Chris. And so he kind of just blew it off. And his response is he didn't really address it. And eventually the couple would come back to Colorado on August 7th. On Chris went and met his wife on the 30th, and on August 2nd or August 4th, one of those 2 days, um, Nicole spent 2 to 3 hours looking for wedding dresses. And so we don't know if it was for Chris, but they had just started this little relationship and it was hot, and both of them was kind of feeling each other. And so on the 2nd or the 4th of August, she spent all day searching for wedding dresses, and Chris was back with his wife. And soon they would return home to Colorado, and Shannon would go away for a business trip. Before she went away for this business trip, she was still trying to figure out what was going on with Chris and why the relationship seemed as if it was falling apart when he asked for her to have another baby, and now she's pregnant and going through all these emotions. And so um, before she go away for this business trip, she texts and she talk about how Chris responded to finding out it was a boy, and how he didn't want to hold her hand during the ultrasound, and just little things like this she noticed and she picked up on, and she kind of felt like it was another woman. Even though she didn't believe it, she just knew it was something that had him changing from the way that he was. And so she would go away for this business trip. While she was away for the business trip, Chris hired a babysitter to come and watch the girls. And he told his wife that he was going out with coworkers, which was a half lie because Nicole was his coworker, but he wasn't going out with a group of coworkers. He was on another date. And so when she returned from the business trip, her friend and coworker Nicole Atkinson would drop Shannon off in the wee hours of the night. At that time, Shannon was kind of ill, so Nicole had offered to take her to her doctor's appointment the next day. The next day, she get up, she calls, she texts Shannon. There was no answer, no response. So she jump in her car, she goes to the Watts family home. She bam on the door, no answer. So Nicole called 911 and report that she feel like something is wrong with her friend, and she also called Chris. When she called Chris, Chris tell her they were fine when I left, but I will come to the house. I will let you guys in. We'll check and make sure everything's okay. So the police arrive. Chris get there, just like he said. He let them in the house. He let them search, and police would search the home. When they got inside the home, they found Shannon's car keys, they found her cell phone, and they found her purse. And so the whole time the friend is kind of alarmed, but when the police mentioned that they see her purse, the friend is you can see the fear immediately hit her face. And her response to that was Shannon never goes anywhere without her purse because she has lupus and she keep her lupus medication with them. So they searched, they found all this stuff, but they found no Shannon, no Bells, no Cece. And they would go to neighbors and they would review um, camera footage that caught the streets in front of the Watts family home. They didn't see any cars come on the road um, really at all from the time that Chris left to the time that the police arrived and did the search. I think it was maybe one car that passed by during the whole time. So that was a dead end. And Chris reported when he left the house, his children was fine, Shannon was fine, and that they were in the process of getting a divorce. So he was just hoping that she ran off with the kids and didn't want to be in contact with him. And so police leave. They would continue their investigation. News people would come out. Chris would get on the news. He would beg for whoever had his family to bring him home. And if they were safe, just let him know they were safe. And so it wouldn't be long until police find the details that Chris murdered his children and his wife. And so they would bring him in for questioning again, and they will kind of tell, lead him to know that we know you killed your wife. And so he tried to put it off on Shannon that she killed the girls, and he came in and he caught that she killed the girls, and so he killed her. And that wasn't making sense to the police. They did not believe that. And so eventually the details would come out that Chris killed his daughters. In one of the stories, they said he killed his daughters and then he went and killed his wife, but they weren't dead because in the midst of him trying to get his wife wrapped up, Bella came in and asked what happened to her mom. And Chris lied and told her, "We finna take your mama to the hospital, get her checked out," and he would load Shannon in the back of his truck. And after he put her in the truck, he loaded his two girls in the vehicle, and then he proceeded to drive 30 minutes to his job, which was at a oil factory or oil rig. And when he got there, he grabbed Celeste, Cece, he grabbed her baby blanket, and he proceeded to suffocate the 3 year old. After he suffocated her, he climbed up the ladder for the oil tank, and there's a hole that's approximately 8 centimeters big at the top of this tank. And so he climbed up the stairs and he pushed her body into this hole, and she fell into a tank of oil. And after he did that, he went back to the car, and his 4 year old daughter, Bella, sat in the back seat. And so he said she asked him, "Is the same thing going to happen to me that happened to Celeste?" And he don't remember the response, but he still carried out the plan to kill his 4 year old daughter. And so he proceeded to suffocate Bella. Now, it's important to note that Shannon died, when Shannon was killed. She died pretty fairly easily, and when Celeste was killed, it was fairly easy for Christopher. But when he had to kill his 4 year old daughter, Bella put up a fight. There was scratch marks, bite marks, but he succeeded. Of course, he overpowered the 4 year old, and after she was deceased this time, he took her to a different oil tank, and he climbed up the steps, and he found, just like the other oil tank, he found a hole that was approximately 8 centimeters in size. And if you don't know how big that is, it's um, kind of if you think of a kayak, the hole that's on the back of a kayak, it's about that big. And so he shoved her body into that tiny little hole. And so when he talked about it, he also talked about how the splashes was different. So he felt like one tank had more oil in it versus the other. And after he did that, he went, he dug a shallow grave, and he put Shannon's body there. Afterwards, Chris went to work. Chris didn't change his day. He didn't alter his plans. He went to work as if everything was completely normal. After they uncovered all of this and he was charged with a murder, it would later be found out that he was actually poisoning his wife and giving her pills to make her miscarry. And I guess he thought it would be easier to leave her if she wasn't pregnant. I don't even know what the logic and the thinking behind that was, because he still had two children with her. And he wanted to start his life over. He wanted a clean slate. He wanted to get rid of his wife and his children so he could start a new family with Nicole Kissinger. And a lot of people are, they were mad at Nicole and they was calling her all these different names. But I don't think she actually knew about the relationship until it hit the news that he had done killed his wife, or his wife was missing, and he was on the news begging for her to come home, because I think she approached the police and gave, the information. She wasn't really trying to hide anything. But I found that story very interesting. Also, before I go, I also want to say Shannon's mom and dad sued Chris, so that he could not uh, profit off the murders of their daughter and their grandchildren. So he's done a few interviews and wrote a few stories, but whatever proceeds he is set to make off of that will go directly to the parents and grandparents of Shannon Watts and Bells and Cece. 2018, you guys look it up.